Today I want to talk a little bit about the Disgaea series. I've already brought up the things I want to see in future Senran Kagura and Neptunia games, so let's do the same with Disgaea. Disgaea games have changed remarkably little over the years. While the differences between the first game's PS2 release and Disgaea 5 are quite obvious in graphics and gameplay, it's actually the result of small evolutionary steps across several games. That sounds a bit like I'm criticizing the developers, but I think this was a smart choice by Nipponichi. Not only did it mean that development costs could be kept to a minimum, but because the first game was well received anyway, it meant that they wouldn't risk a backlash from fans if they tried doing something quite different. In the spirit of that, my suggestions of what I think should be included in the next Disgaea game, perhaps Disgaea 6, are mostly not going to be revolutionary, though I do think some of them potentially can be. Also, I'm not going to comment too much on specific gameplay functions because frankly, I tend to forget how a lot of that stuff works when I'm not playing the games. Things like that change from game to game, and I'm actually fine with that. Let's maybe start with some, smaller stuff. Something that went away with Disgaea 5 was the character movements and cutscenes. Having the sprites move really adds a lot of life to the dialogue sequences, even if the movement is minimal. I'm not really sure why they went away with that in the first place, but it would be nice to see a return of that. Something I've been enjoying with Disgaea D2 and 5 is the increase in graphical detail of the environments. Disgaea 3 was, pretty poor looking for a PS3 game. D2 and Disgaea 5 have much more interesting environments. It's not just a collection of low-res textures anymore. But what we need now is an increase in resolution for the character sprites. They look fine standing there on the map, but special attacks often zoom in quite severely so you can see the pixels very clearly. That's all they really need, extra resolution. I do think that they should keep this slightly chibi look, because it works out with the height variation with the characters and the monsters and all that stuff. It's like a normalization kind of thing. So in that regard, I think it's fine. More dramatic changes like 3D graphics I feel aren't needed. In fact, I don't think I'd want that. There's a certain charm that would go away. Plus the 2D sprites in a 3D world is kind of the Disgaea look. The character designer Takahito Harada has a really unique art style that stands out, so it'd be a shame to replace the art with 3D models. And also, let's face it, Disgaea is still a game built on a budget, and I think we all know about budget 3D games and how they tend to look. The next one is also graphics related. I think it would be cool to have more variations for the generic classes. Give all the classes male and female equivalents, not to mention there are game exclusive classes and ones that were, retired you could say. Throwing some of those in would be really cool. Also, why not have slightly different designs for each or some of the stronger class stages? I think it'd be quite nice to have, not just for the visual variation, but also just because it looks better than just a palette swap. Let's start thinking about some bigger additions now. Multiplayer. I'm usually not the person to swing the multiplayer flag, but Disgaea is basically crazy anime chess, so why shouldn't there be an extra multiplayer mode? Imagine competitive Disgaea. It would make sense to give a time limit to turns, so that way someone can't stall for too long. There could be different game modes too. For example, maybe some sort of normalization system for different parties, or there could be modes where you can choose a preset party as well. Or maybe you could choose the various casts from the other games and have them face off. A separate free-for-all mode would actually be cool too, and it would fit the theme of the game world. Imagine having like a level 10 party and then you get annihilated by someone who's got everyone at 9,999, with powered up weapons and all that. People getting wiped out by someone much stronger happens all the time for comedic effect in the storylines. So I think it would be funny if you just have an open lobby, as it were. You sim racers will know what I'm talking about. I think the chaos would be funny. I think there's a lot you could do, and it would create a totally different way of playing the game, because you're not playing against dumb AI. The other player would be able to see you flank them, for example. Speaking of dumb AI, how about making the AI smarter? Enemies do weird things all the time, and it's easy to bait them if you want, and they never really have any particularly clever strategies. So I'd like to see more interesting formations and smarter use of attacks, for example. Generally speaking, I found the storylines of the games to be enjoyable, but I think they're the best if they have a strong theme. Define strong how you will. I think the first and third and fourth games are good examples of games with a good, strong theme. The first game introduced the whole good guys, bad guys reversal. Disgaea 3 applied that theme in a school setting. and Disgaea 4 did likewise with politics. I think it's a good way to parody certain topics while keeping things relatively focused. Both with, what's parodied, the type of humor, and all of that sort of thing. So I'd like to see more games that do that. Now here's something that's more related to how the games are released rather than how the games play or look. I don't know if tradition is the best word to use, but Nippon Ichi certainly has been very consistent with how Disgaea games are released, except with D2. First they come out on some sort of PlayStation home console. Sometime later, they land on handheld consoles, but with extra features. Often they include new storylines, characters, and changes to gameplay, and I don't like that. And what I mean by that is obviously I do like the improvements, but what I don't like is that there's always some sort of graphical compromise when going to handheld. It would be great if, home console players could get this stuff too. I'm sure they do it because some people will buy the game twice, but I'm not gonna do that. Some people say that Disgaea 5 on Switch, for example, looks great, but I disagree. The graphics are very obviously pixelated, and I just don't want that if there's a better option. So yeah, it'd be great if they, stop doing that. Something that's both appearance and gameplay related is level design and look. More variety, or perhaps biomes, could really improve the feel of the game, especially in the item world. There should be an improved generation system that follows certain rules so that instead of getting such random looking levels, you'd get something more coherent and nice looking instead. Grinding is something you have to do with Disgaea games even if you're not doing post-game stuff. Grinding is easier farther into the game, so I find it especially frustrating the first time you have to do it, which is usually in the early part of the game. To me that ruins the rhythm, because that's usually when things start to get going. You end up having to play maybe like 1 or 2 levels over and over again, and it takes forever, because you don't have any, special attacks, you can't really do anything. It's just not, I don't know, I just don't think it's that fun. Including a few extra early game maps to grind on that look and feel different would really break up the monotony. So those are some of the things I'd like to see in future Disgaea games. These are just some of my ideas. Like I said before, I didn't really talk about more intricate gameplay functions since I don't really mind when they change around. But if you have any ideas in regards to what you think Disgaea games should do in the future, post them in the comments. If you liked the video and the channel as well, consider supporting me through Patreon or the YouTube channel membership. You get a few benefits like behind the scenes updates, early access to videos, and things of that sort. Check the links in the description for more info. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.